Welcome to the latest episode of the Skiffy and Fanty shows at the movies.
AI slop isn't destroying creativity and quality. It's just allowing in and exposing those who've never had any.
Jesus. Okay. I was worried. I'll just pause. I'll pause. I'm Sean.
I'm Daniel.
On today's
and
show.
Sean was worried.
Oh, no. I was worried about where we were going. And holy cow. On today's show, we are discussing the 2026 science fiction horror movie Bone Keeper, written and directed and cinematographized and shot and almost everything by Howard J. Ford. It stars, I like how you put John Rhys Davies at the front of this, even though he's like a side character, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
So this is the order that the credits appear. So he was lead credit. Terms of
he's not
the
even
appearance.
the lead character.
But no, he's not at all.
Anyway, it's got John Rhys Davies, Sarah Alexandra Marks, Louis James, Tiffany Hannum Daniels, Sophia Eleni, Danny Rahim, Tyler Winchcombe, that is a hell of a name by the way, and Sarah T. Cohen. It'll be available to stream in the UK starting April 6th. Which, with release dates in the U.S. to be determined. My guess, probably not terribly long after that.
That would be my guess as well, but nothing to my knowledge has been announced. So before we get into discussion of the movie, a reminder to our listeners to please share your questions and comments with us at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. Or if you aren't already, join us on Twitch for Sean's Alphabet streams every Friday at 7 p.m. Central, and you can be a part of the interactive live streaming format and, shout out your questions during that in the chat. Finally, be sure to please review and spread the word about our wonderful show. Help support us through our Patreon and be a part of our Torture Cinema polls, live watches, and other special Patreon-only events on Discord and the Torture Cinema Redux coming soon.
All right, Daniel. You have elected yourself to summarize this film, Bone Keeper. So what is this movie about?
So Bone Keeper is about a alien creature that lands on Earth in a meteorite. I think it was like 400,000 years in the past. And it immediately, this big tentacled weird alien creature comes out of the crashed meteorite and goes into a cave where it encounters some presumably Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, something like that, human or human-related species that happens to be wearing sandals and of a more modern construction.
Don't question.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm going too far here. It presumably, consumes them or destroys them. But then flash forward to later, not quite present day, but like the 1970s, I think. And a journalist is exploring the cave where he then gets destroyed and killed by the monster, the alien. And then flash forward again to present day when character Olivia Wheeler is basically joined by, I believe it's 5 other friends on a trip to the region where her grandfather, the journalist, disappeared back in the 70s, and where her mother has now also disappeared while searching for the grandfather. So we now have the 3rd generation going to this cave where people keep dying. And there's this whole folklore in the area, in sort of rural Britain, northern England, I believe. They mention being close to Scotland, so I'm assuming it's the north of England. There's a folklore in the region about this bone keeper that lives in the caves that kills people, and you have like the townsfolk that are like, don't go there, you'll meet your deaths, and are very shady and scary about it. But Olivia and her friends, who include Ethan, Annabelle, Nadia, Ravi, and Nick, want to go find out Professor Harrison, who was the one played by John Rhys Davies, who is like an expert on the folklore and presumably on the caves and this creature that he believes is an alien, though other people thinks he's nuts about that. And of course, none of the young people that want to go into the cave think that there's anything remotely odd about all the people who have died there, or think that it's going to be an issue. They also pick up this random, like, YouTuber social media personality called Bitch Hiker, who goes around exploring, like, haunted houses and weird shit. And so, like, by hitchhiking, yeah. And so, like, she's on her way to a castle in Scotland. That's where Scotland gets mentioned. But she finds them, and they're like, "Hey, Bitch Hiker," because they all know her from her social media platform. We're going to this cave to explore this folklore about this creature, the Bone Keeper. And she's all like, "Wow, that sounds much more interesting than this haunted castle in Scotland. I'll totally go with you." So they go find the professor, who at first is like, "I will never tell you where this is because I'm guilty about, I keep sending people there, like your mother,
the most detailed
Olivia."
summary ever.
Everybody goes there and dies. But they go anyway, and he changes his mind and tells them anyway. They all go, and not surprisingly, one by one, they get picked off. And so the whole part that I was summarizing here is like the first third of the movie. It's a good chunk of the movie is spent just getting them to the caves. They get in the caves, they go in, they find that, yes, this alien thing is there. It starts killing them one by one. They get out, or some of them get out, the survivors, but then they go back in.
One of them does.
Reasons. One of them goes back in. A few of them get dragged back in.
Correct.
Yeah, and yeah, that's enough for the summary.
Yeah. It's a movie. It's a movie that we watched. So I'm just gonna get it out now, Daniel. The thing that we have to
the creature in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't know going into this that this film uses AI visual effects. And I became immediately suspicious in the opening sequence when we see the sort of meteor crash. And there were just things about the way that looked that did not feel like traditional CG or VFX, and a lot of it just felt odd. But I was like, okay, maybe they just used like a package in like a VFX system of some description that was just like that weird glossy look, and it was just odd. But the more you get into this film, the more it becomes very clear that a substantial amount of the shots that are visual effects centered, and very possibly shots that have very little to, like, aerial shots of locations, etc., are, if not wholly or at least in part, done with AI, which made me very upset because at nowhere in this film's credits does it say that AI was used for anything. And I find that unconscionable. And I find that extra frustrating because I did sleuthing and went and looked, and it turns out that the VFX individual, the person effectively in charge of them, is a person who has a like demo reel of their like AI VFX hybrid material that they have made. I don't know how, I didn't watch it because I started to vomit a little bit inside my soul, but I don't know how much of his work is actually a hybridization of these two things. In this film, I don't see terribly much actual hybridization. I see a handful of sequences where it's possible that's the case, but there does seem to be a considerable amount of model replacement with AI people being dragged away by tentacles. And anyway, this is me rambling my way through what I got very frustrated by, because I'm going to be frank, this film in no way needed to use AI. It could have done actually a very effective job of effectively the same plot, almost the same budget, with more practical effects and just using clever camera work, which this film already uses to try to hide all of the AI crap that is in here. And that really pisses me off because it tells me you were aware that these shots were not sufficient It would not stand very well on their own in a lot of sequences. And so there's a lot of quick shooting and movement of the camera and cuts, etc., to sort of hide what this stuff is doing. And I just think that, I don't know, I have to go with like a Hayao Miyazaki quote, and I don't know where we go from here, Daniel, but I just feels like an insult to life itself.
That's fair.
I can't even enjoy the film. I like ruined it for me.
Oh no. It's so I didn't realize even after watching it. It wasn't until I had written up some thoughts on it and kind of looked around at what other people had written and things in reviews, and a lot of them, and every comment was different. Like some people mentioned just crappy CGI or what looked to be cheap CGI. Others said the effects were fine. Others said it vaguely looked like it might be AI. Others said, no, this is definitely AI, and that the visual effects, sort of like what you said, the visual effects person uses this hybrid approach. Others mentioned seeing things in this movie that seemed to be practical effects hybridized with CG, hybridized with AI. So a complete mixture of techniques. Personally, I'm too ignorant because I avoid anything AI related, and I've never knowingly clicked on something to watch something that was made with AI, including a video. And so I wouldn't necessarily be quick to pick it out, because to me, CG already looks kind of fake and weird. And so this just,
CG does.
A lot of it kind of looked like serviceable to not great CG. And it got not great during moments where, as you said, they're really fast cuts and fast paced. I couldn't keep up with what I was looking at. But in honesty, that's an issue I have with a lot of action movies. The effects and the cutting go so quickly, it's a blur to me, and I don't pick up on any details at all. So I guess some of that I missed, and it was only afterwards. I didn't like the movie that much to begin with, but that obviously when I learned about this, it made it a hell of a lot worse. There's also, I wonder how much, or if at all, AI was also used in other aspects of the film outside of the video making, which we can kind of talk about.
Who knows?
As we continue on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you watch if you can find clips of some of the sequences where you really see the monster. So if I'm being honest, there are some shots that I thought looked pretty good. Not, super believable. Like they feel like they're that kind of like okay quality CG. We got a couple of shots where the monster is in, seems pretty well rendered and looks solid. A problem I noticed is that what you get with the monster is it seems to change what it looks like and its characteristics with almost every shot, which was another clue for me that there was a problem. And I really didn't, I don't know, that made it very difficult to get a sense of like, A, what the creature is, and B, sort of like a grounding in why we're supposed to be so terrified of it, other than it just is a monster, because it seems to just be anything it needs to be at any moment. And the result of that in some cases is that shots where we do get to see pieces or holes of the creature for extended periods, some of those shots, like you can see tentacles like morphing into other shapes as it's going, which was another giveaway that this was AI. And to me, that like completely tore me out of the story, because there are very clear ways they could have done some of the quicker shots with, people being dragged away with really very minimal effect at all. Because if we've seen enough horror movies where people get dragged out of camera, by something. And you can do that very effectively. So a lot of these sequences, it just seemed like, did your actors just not want to be dragged around on the ground, I guess? Because I don't know. And when you mentioned that, maybe there were other things that were done with AI, I mean, this does make me suspect, right? How much of this, any part of this production was done by the actual director, right? Did they just write a plot with ChatGPT or whatever, and then that's what they got? I would say that I find less damaging than the visuals, only because the way this story is written makes about as much sense as other D-grade horror movies do. And so I don't know that, like, ChatGPT neither helped nor made it worse in that respect, if it was, or whatever, Copilot or whatever they might have used, if they used it, right? Maybe it's their original thing, but we know that, people who write sort of, lower quality or like, films that aren't being done by committee, that they can write films that are flawed, etc. We've watched some of those that are certainly flawed and have like plot points that are kind of a little wonky. So I don't know, but visually, it just pissed me off.
That can give you, well, I'll get actually to that, the second part of that in a moment. The visual aspect, the creatures changing, and there's also many creatures. So we find out that it's not just one. And so I kind of chalked up some of that inconsistency to there's different varieties of them. And they also seem to incorporate the humans into themselves. They both kill the humans, but then also incorporate parts of them and kind of morph. And so I took a lot of that to also be a characteristic of sort of the biology or how this creature works, almost like the thing in Annihilation, in terms of it was like a moose type creature in Annihilation that mimicked the sounds of people and as sort of like to be a predator. It reminded me of that kind of idea. And so, again, I was ignorant of what, is a call out for being visually generated AI.
Yeah.
But even saying all that, the inconsistency and the weirdness and the fact that it made no biological sense, like when they broke out the microscope to look at the random snot and like, oh, it's hydrophobic and it contains phosphates and a bunch of other things they mentioned. It was like, how the fuck do you know that? And how are you seeing these things in this microscope? It made no sense. As a biologist, that annoyed me.
That annoyed me too, though. Because when we got to that scene, they're like trying to explain the science of whatever they're seeing, and I was like, you've literally looked at a slide for 2 seconds. How the fuck did you determine anything from that? Like, all you can determine is it looks like it has cells and is organic. Right. Like, okay, that I buy, but like they're like they've written a whole scientific paper basically while they're sitting there for 3 seconds, and so I knew you were going to be annoyed.
Microscope. Yes.
Which they just casually, they're spelunking, by the way. So, of course, you bring a powerful microscope in a backpack while you're spelunking in undiscovered caves. Because that won't get broken.
Right.
So
with
ridiculous.
Absolutely no good packaging for it at all. No.
None.
So, in terms of if it was used in other aspects, like the quote that I began this with kind of gets to that idea that this movie, even before I thought about AI, just shows an incredible lack of creativity. You can make an independent D-grade horror, which I love those movies, but the ones I like that are really good, despite being bad, like, quote, bad movies, is that they have originality to them. They have a vision. They have weirdness to them. Sometimes those things don't work, but sometimes they come out of left field and they're kind of cool. But they're interesting, at least. Yeah. This has nothing in it. It's very devoid of creativity, originality, and it does almost seem like somebody put into a generative AI write a story that's based around this simple concept. Because and design dialogue for it, because there is nothing there on that creative side. And I would say the visual is kind of the same. You're putting that in because you don't have necessarily the talent or the creativity, I guess, to shoot it in a way that doesn't show so much of the alien creatures or so much of the action confidently enough that you need to generate something that's kind of mediocre to fill that place and to try to make up for the lack of skill at doing something else.
Well, I would say that, you can have a kind of plot that is, kind of rote, not a terribly exciting plot, but if you can visually tell the story in a very interesting way, you can kind of get away with a kind of weak plot because we'll remember the really interesting visuals. Part of the issue for me that I had was because I realized very early that, oh, this is AI. Every time a new visual came up, I couldn't enjoy it. It just made me more grumpy as I was watching. And so all I had to fall back on was all of the nothing burger that is the sort of story that's there, right? Like the lead character is trying to find their mom, right? But like we have other than like the vague idea like you care about your mom, we don't know anything about her. She's just sad at one point. And it's sort of like, okay, but like, was your mom the most important person in your life? Like, give us some flashback scenes of just how significant, or maybe shoot some of that where like it's mom and daughter like on a phone with each other, and like show some of that relationship for why the mother going missing would have like real meaningful impact, and not just expect us to fill in all the blank there, because we need to connect with these characters. But some of the characters to me feel very flat. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They're either flat or they're sort of caricatures. And at times caricatures that I just don't like. I don't want them there. I just want them to die sooner. Like the social media star, right? I don't know if they intend them to be like one of the most annoying people on the planet, but right, they are. That is the character that they give us, is this person who's like, hey, everybody, like, I totally am gonna go see the Bone Collector. Like, come hang with me, y'all. It's like, I'm hitchhiking.
Bone Keeper.
Bone Keeper, Bone Collector, whatever his dumb name is, right? This character is just, like, everyone wants to bone her, for one, right? All the male characters. That's the male characters,
guys,
right?
too.
The male characters just want to bone girls. But they want to do it. They want to do it clever. Like, get them scared and be the like strong soldier you can come onto, and then like we'll get some booty later. Is basically their whole bit. But like that's the only male character who doesn't talk about boning girls is the scientist. But why is he here with the rest of them? Why are they there?
Why are these people friends? First of all,
I don't know.
Right? Like we don't get any. So like you said, the familiar relationship is not really fleshed out there at all.
No.
Why the professor cares about, like, he doesn't want to even see any of them at first, but then he finds out it's the daughter of this woman, and then he's all like serious and like, come on in. Why?
But why did he send the mother there?
Why? That's another question that has no answer. Why is the social media girl even in the movie? She serves no narrative purpose at all.
She just
dies pretty damn quickly.
She's the first of the group to die.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But why is she there? Why does she have these characteristics? Why is that character a thing?
You would think, right? Because, so like, here's what's funny, right? Her character, the way she's set up, you would think, aha, she's going to be the character that gets evidence out, right? Because she's hooked into her phone. She knows how to go live. She understands all that. But it's not her that sends anything to TikTok. It's a boner dude number one who at the end gets pulled in by the monster, and he's like, say hello to TikTok, fucker. And like, that's his death. And to me, it's like, well, but no, it actually makes sense that maybe this character who feels sort of shallow and frivolous actually has like a really good moment at the end, but they like throw that away by just having her die.
And the sort of primary bro guy,
Boner Bro number one.
Boner Bro number one. He's like the most unlikable of them all. Like he's the most confident, but he's the most like asshole-ish one.
Yeah.
But it's like, is the movie trying to make him into a hero at the end? Is it not? Nothing is done competently here.
Right, like even Annabelle, who dies, has her heroic moment when she's telling Olivia, the one that's
Yes.
the daughter, like you have to survive in like when she's being dragged away. You must go, and then it doesn't amount to nothing because what does Olivia do? She goes in to go find her mother's locket. Why? I don't. I guess it's that important. But why is it important? We have learned absolutely nothing about why that locket is important, except that it's my mom's. But like, who goes into a pit of death and misery full of human bone parts and monstrous stuff-a-thingies, right? Who would do that for just a locket, right? There's no character development to indicate why this character would do something so irrational. We just have to accept it. And so many characters do this. They do completely irrational things. Like the only one who really doesn't is, Nick, played by Tyler Winchcombe, who is Boner Boy number 2, by the way, is him, right? Who actually goes back for, I believe it's Nadia, the social media girl, to sort of basically like she didn't come back.
Ashley.
And he goes back. Is it Ashley? I don't know.
I think so. Nadia was the scientist girl, I think.
Oh, sure. That's okay. Yeah. Anyway, he goes back for her and finds out that she's dead, and then gets alienified because he's like still technically alive? Question mark. Anyway, I don't know.
Right.
Decisions.
This is why I suspect there's AI stuff with the making of this too. Because you have the extra characters aren't defined, random things in there don't get explained, they just kind of appear. But you also have sort of tropes covered that one would expect for the setup of this kind of movie that, again, don't get used properly. They're elements that seem to be pulled from other things, not applied properly, right? And so the big one for me was the whole scene in the pub where they decide they're going to the pub to get a drink before going to the caves, but also to try to find the professor. Why the professor is so hard to find, I don't know. But they know enough about this, except where to find the professor in his house. So they go to the pub to ask about him. They ask in the most sort of inept, asshole-ish manner, because dude bro number 1 is the one asking.
Yeah, Ethan.
After this information, Ethan. But then, like, there's this antagonism from the townspeople, like they're going to attack them and get into a fight. They're cagey and secretive. It's almost like when somebody shows up in the pub in Transylvania asking that they're going to go to the Dracula's house, and everybody gets all quiet and like doesn't want to help them. But there's no explanation given for why this is, why they're acting this way.
Yeah, the professor
and again,
makes some sense.
At the drop of a hat, they change their mind and tell them where to go. So, sorry, like, the professor.
The professor at least kind of makes sense, right? Because he tells us that he got video footage or film footage from the journalist we saw at the beginning, and there was there's a moment in it where it shows the creature, right? And so for him, it's like, there's that, right? Like, he really wants the answer to this, and he's about to die, I just assume. And so, because it's John Rhys Davies at the end of his career, he needs a paycheck. And so that's what I assume is going on here, right? But then he's also sent someone else there, which is not explained, but he feels guilt, right? So his motivations at least make some sense. They're maybe not super developed, but at least, like, there's enough in the story that we could kind of go, got it. Okay, we understand why the professor's there. But you're right that other characters like are behaving in ways with like no real explanation for why they're doing this. And I think another thing I would add here is there are multiple points in this story too where characters say things or things are shown to us that are just like adding some new thing that the story will do nothing with at all. And the one that really got to me was Ravi. After Ravi's attacked and they go to the woods and they go 3 feet from the cave mouth and put a tent up because that's what you do after being attacked by a monster that you just learned is afraid of light but not the dark. sorry, don't question
only afraid
it.
of the light in very certain circumstances.
Right. Moonlight,
also
questionable, but head torch light, nah, not that. They don't like that. Except when the moonlight goes away, what does it do? It comes out and nom nom nom. It's hungry, right? But Ravi is like all beat up, right? And they're like in the tent because they didn't want to drag him to the car that was literally like half a mile away. Just get his ass to the. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting angry. But he says to them like it's us, or it's becoming us, or it's in us, or some phrase like that. And the idea is that it's like becoming what we are. But other than showing like some weird grotesque heads, and some images that suggest it takes on parts of us, the monster is not shown meaningfully doing that. It feels like a line out of The Thing, right? Where it's like, like it's actually mimicking us. Because then I would be like, this is where the reveal is. Like, it turns out the professor all along is like the granddaddy of all the monsters and has like took the professor's body 50 years ago and is sending people there to get them killed, right? That's kind of what you would expect, but it's just a throwaway line. It doesn't really mean anything. This monster, is like, it doesn't really mimic us. It just like takes some little, like your knee will show up in like one of its arms. Like, and that's Olivia's knee. Good Lord, we always needed that.
And is it because it wants to become that, or is just randomly does, or is it because it's digesting her? That none of those are answered. None. And that line about that Ravi says about, it's in us or becoming us or whatever that is, I took it to mean like, oh, this creature's growing in him and it's going to come out, right? And so they then do go somewhere with that, but it's just a dream sequence. Yep. It's the weirdest out of place birth kind of scene.
It's a pregnancy scare scene, right? Where
it's a pregnancy scare scene, yeah.
But with the monster. Yeah. But that's just it,
but
right?
Even more like out of left field and random than the one in the Beetlejuice movie. And just it doesn't work. And again, in the reality of everything, they don't go anywhere with it.
No, they don't. They really don't. In fact, the one thing we get at the end of the story that suggests the monster's not dead is somehow a baby one of them got into a bag and the military guy is attacked. Which, okay, sure, but...
Okay, the military...
I don't know. The military... There's just no conception of how any of this works. I love this.
The military shows up because the professor calls some contact to say, hey, there's aliens in the cave, and we now have proof, which is like a video that one of them shot. But... how does he have this contact? Who is this contact?
Yeah.
And why did this random little bit of shoddy evidence, why does that all of a sudden cause this British special ops unit to come raid the caves and blow away all the creatures, right? Whereas before they were like, no, we're not going to go until we get like a TikTok video. That's really that's the gold standard for, engaging the enemy.
I need to be clear. You called them special ops. Remove that word.
Special forces.
They're just they're just ops.
Ops.
Okay? There's nothing special about them, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right? There's elements of this story that it just seems like it has lots of things that happen in it, and lots of elements that happen, and things that get introduced to us that are either disconnected from the plot like entirely, that is, they're like a thing thrown in for effect, ? And then things that are just not developed so that we understand how we got there. It's sort of like we skipped over parts of story to get to these. I think most of John Rhys Davies' plot after he gives them directions basically is this. And that's true of pretty much every character in this. The one thing I will say is that while the monster's acting is an F-, the characters, I saw some criticism of the acting being like really bad. And while I wouldn't say the performances here are like exceptional performances, For the most part, I thought the cast was fine. They were suitable
Yeah,
with the
they were
non-material
pretty
that they were
solid.
given. It definitely is not like John Rhys Davies' best performance, but he's had like 8 minutes to learn his lines, I assume. But like everybody does fine in this. You're not going to be pulled out if you're pulled out of this for the acting. You are not paying attention, because that's not the part that I think pulls you out. I think some of these actors and actresses, they could probably give stronger performances, I assume, because this is fairly low budget. They just didn't have the shooting schedule to kind of really push the performances a bit. But, I believe their terror when they're being eaten. And, I believe that Boner Boy 1 and 2, like, are really kind of those, like, kind of gross college-age men who just want to make ladies fall in love with their pants. Those are things I buy. That mostly the characters I think come across well. So there's a credit there.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think John Rhys Davies gives a pretty damn good performance. He just kind of goes. He doesn't have much there to work with, but what he has, I mean, he's having fun with it.
True.
Those scenes are some of the best scenes in the movie, in a way.
Because
I've also just recently watched like Murder, She Wrote episodes with John Rhys Davies where it's pretty bad. And so compared to that, this is a much better performance.
Oh, well, I remember John Rhys Davies from Sliders, so...
Yes.
Yeah, the classic days of John Rhys Davies. Yeah, and then he went all weird in Brexit. Anyway, yeah. I mean, sure. I guess you could say, like, his performance is probably the strongest here. He gives the most emotional performance and most like, complexity, I think, in the performance here, which, is good. And I don't know, like, when they do decide to shoot in real locations and not give us weird AI crap, the locations are fine.
And what's also baffling to me is in terms of, like, being a director, I didn't, aside from the effects and talking about the AI stuff, like normal, regular shots, Ford seems a perfectly fine director. I mean, they're pretty good shots. They're serviceable. He even includes like some Super 8 stuff in there because there's not really flashbacks per se, but there's, film of when the mother was a young child playing with the grandfather and such. And there's stuff in there. It's like, okay, you can do things. Are you just lazily doing the rest, or did you pass it off? Were you doing too much by being the cinematographer, the director, the writer, and you can't write? Is that the problem? So a lot of it's a mystery to me, but whatever the answer is, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, he's done other films, so maybe one of his other films, I mean, I'm not going to watch them because I have a moratorium on AI use, so I apologize to the media company that gave us the I
feel bad in that regard.
I
wish they would have. I emailed the back and I said, like, it would be very helpful to know if movies contain AI before we get to, or we wouldn't have said yes to, or requested to watch this.
Right, and for me, it's not just the ethics of it. It really does come down to. My issue, like, there's a lot of issues with the technology, right? We could rehash, like, every argument, but I'm not going to. An issue I have here is that if we're going to make films and we're going to keep advancing this technology where we could basically do anything, right? That creates exactly the problem I think directors sometimes have when they're given gigantic budgets and nobody says no to them. And that is that we don't have to be creative. And horror is like a genre where that creativity is like essential, right? You got $12. How do you make a horror movie look good with $12, right? That is like, we got to figure out, how do we make blood? How do we make gore and viscera? How do we make a creature that is actually scary? How do we shoot that in a way that is scary? How do we get the performances we need, when we've got a shooting schedule that's like 4 days long or whatever? to me, part of what makes horror really exciting as a genre is that limitation. Like, horror doesn't often have gigantic budgets. It is, compared to other genres, often relegated in like that sub $50 million group, and a lot of horror is in that sub $20 million group, right? And then when you get indie horror, like the really exceptional indie horror is like made for under, like It Follows, right? It was made for, what was the like $400,000 or something, right?
Or the Addams Family movies, yeah.
Sure, right? Made for extremely low budgets. And yet making films that have astonishing atmosphere, terror, right? Figuring out how to write stories. This is, to me, a story that I would have just rather he cut his teeth on a few more smaller pictures in terms of their budgetary requirements, making really good budget horror that didn't require a lot of special effects so that he could get somebody to sign off at a larger budget to do this film right instead of going this route. Because there's a good, fun, exciting, terrifying story. Not an original story here, but a terrifying way of telling this story with original effects. And I wish they had done that. I wish they had maybe cut back the cast a little bit. No offense to the actors. I realize work is work and that's important, etc. But maybe just focus on some characters a little bit more. Give them more meat and stuff to play with. Have John Rhys Davies be your like named anchor, but give him more too, right? Have more interactions between their characters. That would make, I just think, a much stronger film. And then, I agree with you when you said earlier, this is kind of like my final thought. I feel like I'm on a final thought. That Howard Ford, I think there's criticism to make about how he edits a film and how he shoots a film. But I think you can see there are instincts in the way that he makes shots that are good instincts for doing in this, right? So the AI thing aside, there are a lot of really great shots where we just get blurred glimpses of this creature, right? As somebody's being dragged away, or we get like just pieces of it, but we never get a full picture in those early sequences. And that's the right decision, because part of the terror is you're in these caves. It's dark. You can't see what it is that's coming for you in the dark. And when it comes, you're getting pieces of it. And taking that and using the jump scare and using these things to make us afraid, right? Annie in chat is saying the shark in Jaws. We're like, we don't see the shark for a huge portion of the film, right? It's super smart, and recognizing your limitations and using our imagination to fill in the blanks. And then when we see the actual thing, the actual creature, right? If you're going to show us the full creature, that's the moment where you just load your budget in to give us the most terrifying monstrosity you could imagine. Not 97 different monstrosities with different variations. Occasionally the tentacles have spikes. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they poop. Sometimes they don't. Like, you give us like, a very cogent, terrifying image that sticks with us. And then don't do the thing where you show the creature over and over and over again. No, like, let that marinate in our brains. That's what I want. I think it's just unfortunate that this is the route that was taken. Sorry.
That is not this movie. Yes. The only other final thought I would have is your brain while watching this, and some of the marketing even mentions The Descent.
Yeah.
Because you have horror movie in a cave with creatures, right? And this movie also completely blows the sort of claustrophobia of caves. Like, there's a few moments of it, but not very much. And The Descent had an overarching theme to it that matched with what was going on in the cave, right? There's relationships between the characters that play into what's happening in the cave that make the cave and these unseen things more frightening. And what's happening between the characters in The Descent, frightening and scary and disturbing. None of that is here. Just because you have a movie set in a cave that's hard doesn't make it The Descent or anything remotely like The Descent. And that was, again, even before realizing the AI, that was one of the big issues that I had with this, is the movie has an interesting, very standard, familiar premise, but it could have taken it in really interesting, unique ways, like Sean said. It just, or the director just chose not to do any of those things.
It sucks. Yeah. I don't know, guys. Like that's kind of it.
This could have been torture cinema. An episode.
It really could have. Yeah. I don't know. It's unfortunate, and this is kind of. It's just. It's. I don't know. It's just very. I'm kind of bummed. I was looking forward to this, and then when I watched it, it just bummed me out.
I guess one last thought that I had is, we get these emails about screeners available, and I usually base it on, does it sound interesting? Does it fit genre? Sure, we'll give it a watch, right? And it also comes down to scheduling. Like, is it one we could feature on the podcast? Is it one we could feature on the blog? This was actually one where we were originally going to maybe have an interview with the director about this. And I'm really glad that didn't happen, because that would have been very awkward and bad. If we had done like an interview with the director. But I've recently reviewed on the blog another movie, Obex, OBEX, which was phenomenal. And I really wish we had done that to discuss, because Sean, you'd love this. Like,
Obex,
that would have been a much better one to have had on the podcast discussion. Yeah. Than this one. So maybe one day in the future we could do a podcast on that one, but at the very least you should watch that one. And I'm going to plug it again here for listeners, that it's something that, again, just because of the timing of when the screener was available and when I could watch it and such, it didn't fit on the podcast. And so we only had it on the blog, but it's one not to be missed.
It apparently has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, and was premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. So yeah, apparently, very, very, it is well regarded. So I need to watch that. That sounds fascinating. Yeah. Look, can I just say, I know we're being super negative, but on a happy note, I am very appreciative that these companies give us the opportunity for screeners for independent cinema, independent horror, science fiction. We have watched a handful at this point, and some of them I would say almost everyone we've watched has been very interesting, flawed, certainly not perfect, but many of them are like some of the ones we watched last year, for example, or the year before, were ones that like really have stuck with me still. You know, there are flaws in those films, and I could recognize them, but I was really, really enticed by the like acting and the directing choices, some of the visual choices. So the point I would say is, I guess what I'm getting at is that independent cinema is awesome, and there's great stuff that's happening in it, and you should, if you can, watch some of this stuff that's coming out from these smaller studios, from individuals, you know, from these organizations where they don't have as much money, you know, as like basically Disney does to just throw like $500 million at a movie that nobody wants. So that's what I just want to say is independent cinema is great, and I'm really grateful that we get to watch them, even if, unfortunately, in this case, wasn't exactly the experience we were hoping for. So, all right. That is the show, folks. So if you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode, maybe we're too mean, I don't know. Send us an email, skiffyandfanty@gmail.com, or if you're in the Discord as a member of our Patreon, you can go into the show discussion channel, or if you watched the film somehow, go to the movie channel and discuss it. This show is on Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, a whole bunch of other places. If you go to skiffyandfanty.com/skiffythings, you will find links to all of those. Please follow us on the socials, share our stuff on the socials, all of that good things. And then if you are not here live with us at this moment, please note, every Friday at 7 p.m. Central, pretty much with like a handful of exceptions in the year when we're on break, we do a live show just like this one. So you can come hang out with us live and chat in the chat and make weird googly eyes at us if that makes you happy. And then again, if you've got money you don't need and you'd like to donate to the show, The best way is patreon.com/giffinfanty. $1 gets you access to literally everything that's on there at the moment, which is like 50 plus episodes of the Speculative Dispatch, our Discord, polls, all kinds of stuff. So please join. And speaking of Patreon, we got people to thank. We have Andrea, the Allure-abiding, Cameron the Chthonic, Caroline the Benevolent, Carrie the Divine, Chris the Candescent, Dan the Transient, Daniel the Cultured, David the Debonair, Jeff the Gracious, Joseph the Jovial, Juan the Junctional, KB the Kind, Karen the Kickass,
Kat the Kinematic, Matthew the Magnificent, Paul the Pious, Robert the Reliable, Robin the Bold, Ryan the Resilient, Sarah A. the Sensational, Sarah E. the Sublime, Sarah O. the Rapturous, Stephen the Strange, Turia the Thorough, Tanya the Triumphant, Trish the Imperturbable, and Erica the Esteemed.
Excellent. So me, I'm at SeanDuke.net. If you put a /Duke things on there, you'll find all of my socials, YouTube, all that stuff. And then I stream on Twitch, this very same place, twitch.tv/alphabetstreams, Sundays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central. Sometimes Paul is there, sometimes other people are there. The Jaguarier is in chat at the moment, who gave me 100 bits earlier, so thank you very much, Jag. Yeah, we play games and have fun. And so if you would like to see a bunch of grown men be weirdly gay with each other, that's what you should sign up for.
You can find me, Daniel, at Reading 1000 Lives, at the blog, or on Blue Sky, and that's 1000 the numerals.
Excellent. As required by the Skiffing Fanty bylaws, I must now make this hopeful. And my hope for the world is that we continue to make wonderful and exciting art. Not always perfect, but certainly wonderful and exciting art as a human species made by humans, using human technologies that involve humans being the direct and active agent in the production of the work itself. Because humans making art is essential, and when we lose that, our whole species, I think, just collapses into gray goo and we cease to exist. So, on that note, hopeful ending and scene.